Lucid Mover is a podcast about creativity, well-being, and things that are interesting to creatives. Welcome to episode 4 of the Lucid Mover Podcast. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my very first guest for the show. It is iAM13E, Wordsmith and Well-Being Facilitator. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm feeling blessed. Sun is shining. Weather is sweet. I'm just about configuring to being back into everyday life, shall we say, after some potent couple of weekends. And really excited to dive in with this conversation with you, bro.
So what we're going to do today, obviously the focus of the show is about creativity and well-being. And I've got to say, I couldn't have picked a more perfect guest as my first for my first interview, because one of the things that really came through to me this weekend when we were doing some circle work, you were talking about integration and stuff. And one of the things that you mentioned was about the importance of creativity as an expression for, part of our integration. And some of the things you said were almost verbatim what I had said in my podcast about creativity, which you hadn't even heard. So it was it was like just beautiful serendipity there, right?
That's the power of ceremony and allowing the group to regulate. There's so much medicine that comes through. So it feels so aligned to be having this conversation with you.
All right, so let's get into it. I want to hear a bit about what's your origin story, bro. How did you first get into making music?
To be fair, when I was a youth, I really liked, my mom used to play a lot of R&B soul records and all sorts of bits. And I actually wanted to be a singer. I used to listen to a lot of Joe, Keith Sweat, I don't know, Luther Vandross, spanning even Michael Bolton, all sorts of bits. And then my voice started to break and I couldn't quite regulate how I would sing after that happened. Well, I used to have a very short temper as a child. It used to be I could flip really easily, and that was from a place of not feeling like I was understood or not having the right words to be able to express myself. And I found then a medium of creativity or poetry to be able to to access those. And hip hop took me mainly through Tupac. Tupac was my entry point, because of the fact that he was writing poetry, he was writing conscious bars, thug bars, and he was showing this whole spectrum, and they were bangers. So it started from Tupac, then into Wu, Eminem, all sorts. And there was this level of how can I continue to be better? How can I be the best? How can I be the best? And sitting in the back of classes and writing rhymes and even using rhymes to revise on tests, because I was it's the same process. And then I got into trouble a lot in school, quote unquote, because it's not what I said, it's the way that I said it. So if a teacher told me shut up and sit down, but speak to me nicely, speak to me with respect, you get respect back. And that was not always received very well from those learning experiences, multiple detentions and all sorts of bits. Got me to a place where I was like, okay, cool. So how can I say exactly what I mean and what I want to say that will also it will land for the person that I'm saying it to, and it will also keep me out of trouble. So that was then the entry point to be able to see then how words impacted human beings, or the impact of the creative story, so to speak. And then fast forward, ciphering under underpasses with the bros, recorded stuff in the dojo, and started banging out tunes. And then went to uni, got into a few of the circuits, and I fell out of love with music for a number of years. That's where I found well-being and cold showers, namely. And then that started to reconfigure me loving what I do. There's a bar I have. There's a difference in choice and the day that you decide. So I made a decision to decide and being like, okay, let's make this happen. Let's make this happen. And yeah, it's been a scenic route.
This whole thing about speaking truth to power, that was something that really came through to me when you were speaking there. You know, you mentioned Tupac and Wu-Tang and stuff, who were like, you know, two of my absolute biggest musical inspirations growing up. And then getting into trouble with the teachers and having that thing of like, you know, the sort of injustice of this sort of oppressive educational system, and just trying to express yourself, but it not actually being received in the way that it's intended. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you remember, but this weekend, when we first met, we were having a conversation about a similar sort of thing, right? About sometimes when you express yourself, no matter how hard you try to articulate the idea, the person you're communicating to may not be ready to receive what it is that you're saying, right?
Ooh, I don't know that one. Shit.
So it's like, so you know, it doesn't actually matter how carefully you package it. If they're not ready to receive it, it's not going to land, right? So currently you're based in Bristol, right?
Busy, yeah.
And
Bristol.
is that where you grew up, or?
Nah, I grew up in a combination of like North London, like Holloway, Cali Road.
Okay.
Then went to Milton Keynes, City, the roundabouts and concrete cows. Grid City, baby. Then Brighton. I stayed in Brighton a few years, and then Bristol is now where I call home.
Bristol is renowned for its diverse and vibrant music scene. How do you find being a musician in Bristol?
That's part of the reason that I came here, a big pull, because when I first came to Bristol, there was something special about it, because it reminded me if London and Brighton had a one-night stand, this would be a spring. Like, always say that. That's what it feels like. There's so many the parts of the city that feel that way. It took me a while to be like open mics. I was going through a stage of like open mic and night, just consistently, boom, wanting to get into places and trying to figure out like which hip hop nights are happening. How can I get on stage? And I'm meeting this person, I'm ciphering there and this, that, and the other. It has not necessarily become easier to be on places. I've just become better at getting into places and forging the connections and all sorts. But the scene itself spans from like backpack rap to like gritty ends to drum and bass MCs shelling it off. And like I am so grateful. And yeah, this city has done a lot and continues to do a lot. And I have to also pay homage and respect to the people who have been doing it in the city from day one. And there's so many amazing artists in the city, and I still continue to, even a couple of weeks ago at Hip Hop at 50, met some elders from the Bristol scene. And it's like, I want to connect, because hip hop is one of the only musics that seem to shun its elders, and hip hop in its nature is as far as I'm concerned, like a spiritual practice that requires its elders for the next generation. So I'm continuing to dive deeper. I want to learn from them and all sorts. But to summarize it, Bristol scene is vast, expansive, interesting, challenging at times. Yet this is the only option for me. That's will beautiful. Make it work. It's burn the boat season for me.
No, I love what you're saying about the spirituality of hip hop. I think that's something that often gets overlooked, particularly with kind of modern iterations of hip hop. And I think at the core of the culture is something. When I was at uni, I was looking quite heavily into Afrofuturism and some of the ways in which it kind of manifested in different genres of music. It's a fascinating topic and something that I'd like to talk about in a future episode in more detail. But this idea of hip hop being a vessel for the culture of the African diaspora, particularly, but also the various cultures that, you know, in the melting pot of New York. Right. And this idea of sampling, kind of taking elements of what came before that sort of ancestry, right, and bringing it through to future generations in a new way, right? So those stories that may otherwise have been lost are getting you know, reintroduced to a new generation. Even, you know, my son has been getting into hip hop recently. When my kids were younger, I was, you know, not really listening to so much hip hop because of all the swearing and stuff. So I was kind of listening to more soul, funk, jazz, those sorts of things. And a lot of the music that I listened to was the original music that had been sampled, hip hop stuff. So sometimes some of these tunes are coming through and I'm going, oh, you know, this is a sample from that Eminem tune you like, or that Dr. Dre tune you like. And he's like, oh, really? So he's starting to understand that musical lineage, right? Which is really beautiful, man. And when we're talking about the kind of the culture of hip hop, something that really has always struck me and is just, you know, one of your greatest gifts, and such a beautiful contribution to the kinds of circles that we've been involved in together, is freestyle, right? And freestyle is something that has always eluded me as a skill. So I'm always in great admiration of people who I witness this ability to just be able to, like, I mean, you know, we were stood around a campfire a few months back and people were just chucking words at you and you were just like weaving it together. Like, I was like, what? This guy's sick, man. So tell me a bit about your journey with freestyle, your relationship with freestyle, what it means to you, you know?
Freestyle for me is connection to the creator through creation.
Beautiful.
For like realist talk though, origin story for freestyle. I learned how to freestyle because originally when I was listening to like Big L and all sorts, and whenever I used to see like freestyle, I thought, oh rah, these lot are making this up on the spot. Like raw, like how do they do that? And it was something that was really like, I thought that was amazing, and I don't know how I could ever do that. I then come to realize that not all quote unquote freestyles are off the top of the head.
Yeah,
they're just free of style. Yet it still had that level of intrigue and pull, and it was realist talk actually, because sometimes I used to forget my bars a lot. In fact, I used to forget my bars a lot as a youth. So I'd have various songs and all sorts, and then there were certain parts I'm like, so as long as I can make it, style it out to the next chorus, man's good. And then it started to be a way that I used to connect with someone that I used to work with a lot, where I'd go away for long periods of time and then we'd reconnect and we'd go for walks for hours, and our conversation would be back-to-back freestyle. Ooh, and it was beautiful. Just like, okay, cool, like we're having a conversation through rhyme. And then fast forward over the years, it was just something like I used to do in halls and like on underpasses and little ciphers and all sorts, because of the fact that it's a way that like I can be present with what is and have observations and all of that. And then I started to continue to see like KRS freestyle and then diving down Super Nat, like doing his stuff. I was like, raw. I felt like I was complicating some things, and then to simplify, and then Harry Mack, like doing absolute bits, who just continues to inspire me on so many levels. Even when he came to Bristol, I was like, raw, man did a whole 90-minute show with bangers, creating actual bangers on stage. And I'd say for more so over the last few years, it's where I would do freestyles in ciphers, but in front of big like stages and all sorts. The expansion between big stages with like thousands of people and or intimate, like especially round a fire, you scare the crap out of me, and that's why I started to do it. And then the next sort of level up for me was I was at Meadows in the Mountains last year, and a friend of mine was like, "Oh, do you want to come up on a set?" And with this particular like 140 bars, at the time I hadn't had that many memorized, so it was like, "Come on, let's just vibe." And from being there on the stage, like freestyling the entire like set, so wow, there is a new unlock. So yeah,
that's incredible.
I absolutely love it.
That's incredible. I love what you're saying there as well about the importance of presence. right? Because that's something that we talk about so much, like being present in our body, embodied, and just in the moment, as opposed to being in our heads elsewhere thinking about other things. And I've found in the times that I've used to try and freestyle, sometimes I could catch a flow. And as soon as I realized, I was like, I was like, oh, this is going really well. And then it's like, oh, you lost it.
Yeah.
So it is really about being that channel, right?
Freestyle for me is simply put as a flow state. So everyone can freestyle. Everyone does have the ability to be able to do so, whether it's a conversation, whether it's the way that like, someone puts an outfit together. That's creative flow and interaction with human beings. I just happen to look at words like jigsaw puzzles or spider diagrams and be like, oh, does that work with that? Does that story make sense? Is it funny, interesting, weird, or triggering? Yes, no. Okay, cool. Let me go for that one.
I love that. And then, yeah, also something that really has always amazed me about you, right, is your ability to transition between these two worlds, right? I was on Instagram. I saw there was one time I saw you at a music festival, and you were freestyling over drum and bass, and there was a bunch of naked people in the field dancing to you, like literally naked. I'm not talking about topless. I'm talking about starkers, yeah. and you're just up on stage, just like, dropping bars. And then it was like a week later, you was at a grime night with a bunch of the man them in hoods and caps and shit. And I was like,
yeah,
bridging the two worlds, man. It's just absolutely beautiful.
I appreciate that. That was Love Jam Festival last year. That was really, really special because of the liberation. It's that set with DJ Makata. Shout out Makata. Yeah, it was really, really special. Like to be able to be in that skank out, and it's for me, it's like how can I tap into a certain frequency? So if I'm on like boom bap, there's a certain frequency or patterns that I have, or like 140, there's a frequency and patterns, and D&B a certain frequency and patterns. So it's the connection with the people, similar to how, for example, in men's work or a human workspace, we attune to like the collective nervous system or the social nervous system. That's what I feel also happens for me when I bar, to have a level of like, how can I bridge a connection so it's less me like piercing at people with bars. It's more a case of we're experiencing this together. And yeah, to draw both sides.
Love that.
Yeah, man. And I would say that the shamanic, or the nature of how I understand a shamanic path, how it's been communicated to me, is to have one foot in the physical space and one in the spiritual space, and bridge to be a bridge between worlds. And yeah.
I'd like to ask, like, what sorts of practices do you maintain as part of your routine to help support your creativity? Like, what sorts of things get you into the zone to be creative?
So for myself, more time, I train most days of the week. So I'll go to the gym and do a martial art, like either boxing, Muay Thai, and jiu-jitsu is calling me back. And also moments of stillness. I may not always make the space that I recognize, and it's something that I am wanting to bring back into of my 20-minute meditations or just being outside. And that also with my journaling practice. But I have like some breath work practices, either box breathing or the physiological R, I believe the technical term for it is. I basically exhale extended breathing to be able to anchor me into a space and to calm my nervous system down. And I also have a set of like embodiment cues that I've entrained myself to be able to come back to certain moments, to be able to have them in my day to day. Have an ever increasing yoga practice, and if in its simplest form, just to get outside. Like that to me, and that's the most challenging thing at times coming back from like facilitation spaces, Suns or human work or any other facilitation space for an extended period of time, especially if we've been around loads of trees and in nature, and I'm coming into the center of the city and there's angles everywhere, and yeah, that's a challenge. But I'd say actually one of the biggest recalibration pieces for myself, two of them, is silence and solitude as one, and creativity also in solitude as well. Good night. Creativity. Either my integration would be like, let me just make a sketch for a beat or write some bars, or there is an amazing jam that happens every Sunday called Family Business here in Bristol, a place called the Gallimalfrey. And just for me to be able to know, if I'm stirring with stuff or moving with, sitting with stuff, to go and microphone and just to let it move through me, because I get nervous and energy moves through me every single time. And being able to lean into that edge is just like, okay, cool. Lean into the edge a little bit more. Something will move.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You touched on that a few times as well, leaning into the edge. That's definitely something that is, on my journey over the last few years, being able to identify where that healthy resistance is, or that resistance to positive change, and being able to lean into it. That's the warrior spirit, right? That's that part of us that's like, you know what? This is going to do me some good. It's the cold shower energy or whatever it is, or that first step getting onto the yoga mat. So yeah, I absolutely resonate with that, bro. So you are as we've mentioned, a well-being facilitator in a number of different roles, and capacities. So let's begin that origin story, right? So what was the thing that kind of first got you into this space in a serious way,
So if I'm being real in terms of like actual from grassroots level, I would say my mum has such an amazing intuition, and I'd say that a part of that gift, or that gift incarnated into me in my own way. That was through dreams, through insights, etc. And even as a child, I could pick up on energies and spaces, see and experience things that if I told certain adults would think that I'm a bit crazy. So I kept that quite close to the chest. I held those cards very close to the chest, even in terms of seeing energies and spaces, and almost having psychedelic, or now what I can attribute to it, what would look like a psychedelic experience without a psychedelic substance in a day-to-day life.
Wow.
Some of my friends growing up used to call me a spiritual bastard. Oh, you're so spiritual, so spiritual. But when they were having their own processes and tripping out, who was the one that they'd come and speak to? So now I say that elements of that quote unquote spiritual bastard, it earns me an income and also creates impact at the same time. And I'd say for this latest, or the refinement of the spiritual awareness, after having multiple awakenings, if you want to say that way, or let's say ego deaths, and a lot of unlearnings. I had an experience whereby a friend of mine that I hadn't spoken to in like 7 years must have called me up. He was living in Australia. Shout out Tamar. And he was like, bro, like, I get it. I see, like, I know, I see what you're on about. And my guy was from Battersea. Every time I talk about something spiritual, he'd be like, shut up, bro. What are you on about? And then he started to gain like his insights and all sorts. We shared. And then he was the one telling me about crystals. I was like, bro, like, they're pretty, but they're just rocks. And he was like, no, bro. It's a retrograde coming up, and get some selenite and all sorts. Still got my selenite ones right here. Do you know what I mean? And that started me going into a particular place looking for crystals in this crystal shop that a woman was giving another woman a reading, and then the reading turned out that it was actually for me. She pulled cards, and she was sharing, shout out Malike, sharing the insights that were on there, but it was for me. And that caught me off guard, because I could and I can read people very well. And even part of my human design is a manifester, so my aura is relatively closed. So when people can read certain parts of my energy, I'm like, interesting, let's have a conversation. And that started my journey into Reiki, Kundalini Reiki, Rakama Reiki, and after through that, I was then introduced to structural integration. It's the ability of being able to reorder the body with gravity so that it functions in the way that it's designed, using its connective tissue. And when I would always put like different parts and move energy through energetic treatments. When I put my hands on the body through structural integration, I was like, rah, this is so fascinating. And seeing like there was an insight for me where I was like, I need to do this. Like, I have to do this. And yeah, I trained in a place in Bath, a place called Wellbath, and it was a really special experience, especially like this was in and around the time and past the time of the global shutdown and reset. So that was an anchor point, and being able to basically create space and unlocks in my body for trauma that I was carrying through this work. So my body was reordering itself. That then allowed my creative expression to come through. It's a 10 session experience. And on the 5th one, which is around the core, that's when I started channeling poetry. And the poetry was just coming through me. So it brought me back to the body tells a story and the body keeps the score. And in order to reset the score, it's now my responsibility as a creative to tell the stories that were stored in me so that others may find resonance to recognize they're not alone. So all encompassing.
That's beautiful, bro. Tell us a little bit about Aim to Be.
Sure. Aim to Be is around creatively inviting well-being into everyday life, and it's with my partner Amy, and her part of her background is Reiki. She started her process with structural integration. She's a yoga teacher and a bar instructor as well, so she prides herself on being a community queen, and she's cultivated a really beautiful community in Bristol. And we do combination events like Reiki and Rest, where we put people in relaxing poses, a yoga sequence, and I'll do some channeled poetry and some written poetry as well, based on what's happening in the group, among other things that we want to be able to try and find access points for people with creativity or creative parts to allow them to experience levels of well-being. And I'd say that the global reset made us be creative with how we then share well-being with others. And yeah, it's been a beautiful journey and amalgamation to where we've now arrived, and we support like Silver Haze at Glastonbury, and that's continuing to expand. This is the vision, to continue to take well-being support through creatives. As speaking for myself in the creative journey, there was a time that I could only like write if I was high. And if I hadn't rolled a zoot, like I wouldn't be able to channel something.
Yep, I've been there.
Yeah, or be able to freestyle unless I was wavy. Do you know what I mean? So it's being able to say that like all of you is welcome, and like let's see how the decisions made even in festival settings can continue to build you up as you being of great service. So
I love that you brought that up as well, you know, because that was definitely something that I experienced, certainly as a young adult. I was very much in that state where it was like, I need to smoke weed in order to be able to get in the zone. And a lot of the young people that I worked with when I was doing youth work experienced the same sort of thing. But just in terms of your experience with that, what's, is there anything you'd like to kind of share in terms of getting from that space of kind of needing it to not needing it?
So I feel like underneath it, it's a level of trust in one's own ability. The piece around the level of needing certain things is intention. So for myself, when I used to like bun weed, it was like, what I didn't realize upon reflection is it's almost a ritual. Everything like MC, master of ceremony.
Ooh,
So there is ceremony in that. Okay, cool. Like building up a zoo, ready. Okay, cool. Have a zoo. All right, let's get in. Let's write. There is a certain state, a heightened state. Yet on reflection, if it's something is not used as a medicine, it will be a poison. And there's a fine line between them both.
Beautiful.
I'd say for myself, the difference between I felt like I was writing from substance as a means for me to get through and into my trauma to access it. The more I face or go into spaces where I can access my trauma in a space of presence, then I can access it when I'm trying to process and move something through me through the somatic experience of expression. Okay, there's something moving through my body. This is what it is. It has to move in this way. And the way in which to do so is, setting a clear intention. Like, how do I feel when I hear this piece of music? How do I intend it to make? How does it make me feel? What do I intend the listener to feel? And what is the overall feeling of this process? And me as a conduit to be able to do so. And the transition came from me as exploring it. Like actually being willing to be like, you know what, actually, let me see what I'm writing from here. And also writing from a place of just writing and writing from being happy. Because that was a big piece for me. It always used to be, oh yeah, pissed off, fuck the world, you did this, cool, battling, like there's that warrior is online. But what happens when the magician's online? What happens when the king's online? And what happens when the lover's online? From both ends of like experiencing love and experiencing grief. And how do those archetypes play in the spectrum of being able to express? Because each thing has its sound. And for me, trusting myself more to show up in spaces, even now, I recognize if I go out and even if I have a sip of alcohol before I have a set, maybe it's a psychological piece that it alters my energy. And I'm like, or that didn't quite land the way I wanted it to. It's a big piece for me. So if in the rare occasion I want a cheeky little beverage afterwards, then it will be after I perform as a like, okay, cool. This is me closing that portal. But it was often considered a bit strange by some of the scene that I would turn up and I'm here with a water filter bottle, because some of the venues didn't have bottled water, and me just being able to shell down with presence. Because then I can do that there, I can do that in everything else with presence.
Love that.
It's a practice.
Tell us a little bit about how you were first introduced to men's work and Sacred Sons.
So men's work initially was maybe 6+ years ago. It started initially for like, actually before that with like a men's like circle. And there was a few bros I wanted to get together and have a conversation, which was a bit of an edge to be able to be in an all men's space in that capacity. I'd seen like Sacred Sons, and a lot of the guys in there were MKP initiated, and I was curious about that particular process pathway. And likewise, I'd seen some of the stuff for Sons, and seen they were in the States, and I was like, right, like I don't know if I'll be able to get over the States, and it's an investment to get over there and to do the pieces themselves. It's like, oh, you know what? If they ever come here, we'll see how it aligns. Fast forward, London immersion a couple years ago, and provisions were made. Spirit made it possible, and it was potent. Like J-Mac, Carle, Andrew. That's when I first met like Peter and Jack. And
Shout out Peter and Jack.
That up for sure. And like seeing them both like super stoic, like sacred stoic, I was like, raw. I could feel my heart beating, drums are going as we're going into this space, and seeing some of the activations as well. And I recognize even from that space, like that was a beautiful catalyst of I don't know, I just the connection felt with the bros was really special. Like I have a lot of like close bros, but there was something different, like tangibly different about the experiences. Because likewise, I'd seen like the ritual combat, I saw the primal recalibration, bro shouting, this, that, and I was like, raw, like, you know, is it just all about shouting in people's faces and all sorts? And it's more than that. They are practices to alchemize energies, and then to be able to strip back the masks and get to know sometimes deeper in a shorter space of time than some bros that I've known from years, because of the ability to have those conversations. And after that event, did the LT1 training. At the same time, I'd done my MKP initiation, New Warrior training. Then just continued on the pathway with Sacred Sons. Been in Devon a few times. Been to Denmark, Ireland. Gonna go back to Ireland, Scotland. Just come back from Wales. And I just really love the connection and thread of that. And it's what I've noticed most about doing the leadership training with a Sacred Sons is how I show up outside of the spaces. The tools and technologies that I have to be able to communicate with people, the witnessing like the emotional and somatic cues, being able to connect deeper with human beings in my community based on what I've learned from these spaces. And then to have bros in there that can call me on my shit if I need to. Bro, you said you do this, or you haven't. Why haven't you?
Accountability.
That pure accountability, exactly. And I sharpen myself around the men that are in these spaces, like witnessing the level ups. Like I've connected with more bros from more countries in a shorter space of time with Sacred Sons than any other organization I've been with. And that's not to say that like the others aren't great. Everything is great and has contributed to it. And I just continue to appreciate the insights, especially from a previous training in Sardinia with Pierre Etienne and the team, and just the remarkable level of eldership, insight, leadership, and connection that is formed. I'm super grateful, and because of Sacred Sons, like we're talking now. Do you know what I mean? It's like all of these pieces, and to witness, not to speak on your process, but the things that you managed to peel back, and the man that I saw when he arrived in Wales, and the man that I see now as he's integrating two different men. And the reason I go back into these spaces is because I see miracles every day. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree 100 million %. I couldn't agree more. And that's the thing as well. It's one thing I really love as well is like coming away from these retreats, these intense experiences, and the level of connection. I mean, there were brothers I met for the very first time last week, you know, and I feel this depth of connection deeper than I feel with people who I've known since childhood. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that I can know somebody for like, 30 odd years, and I can know somebody for like 5 days, and the quality of that connection be so palpably different, is just incredible. And it is a testament to the container that Sacred Sons create, and the kind of work that they do. I also love what you mentioned about that. There's so much around people's resistance to stepping into these spaces, right? And I think and I've spoken to numerous people about this on both sides, and the fact that, you know, a lot of what you see on Instagram, it is the, you know, what we call primal recalibration, which is basically, well, what it looks like on Instagram is one guy screaming in another guy's face while he sort of stands there and lets him do it, or you know, putting the gloves on and sparring, both of which are really important, valuable tools that are, you know, play a part in the process, but are definitely not what it's all about. It's like a very small percentage of the whole experience, right?
Definitely.
And I think for some people, when that lands, they're like, oh, I want to do that, you know? Whereas for other people, they're a bit like, oh, I don't think I ever want to do that. You know what I mean? And speaking to people that have had the experience, understanding the importance of that very small part of it, and B, how it is such a small part of it, and how the rest of what we experience in those weekends is just like, it's kind of impossible to articulate in many ways.
Definitely.
Like, you have to be there, right?
Definitely. And I'd say that the even with like the primal recalibration, it's a creative expression. There's so many things that are stored in the body that may not be able to be done on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely.
Yet when you've got a vast amount of land and space where you can actually take up your space vocally, then occupy it. And the same with the ritual connection, like the combat piece. It's a creative expression of like it's a dance, as it's called.
It is.
And all of the pillars that how I to my awareness in this moment is around like connection, confrontation, communication, and then there's creativity in those particular pieces that all come together in a ceremony.
What is present for you right now in terms of your work?
Yeah, so speaking to this, My Brother's Keeper was originally a poetic piece built for men's ceremonies, or created for men's ceremonies, acknowledging at the time numerous, I think there's like now 20 plus organizations in mentioned through artistic wordplay throughout the piece, and it's sharing an insight. It's putting words to something that sometimes can't have words, as you said, being in that ceremonial space and giving an insight. And it's the first piece that I have actually like shared in the public domain that is like all me, like from the, you know, beat making to the writtens, mix, masters, like it's all me. So it's a very vulnerable piece. And to be honest, I completely forgot I'd scheduled it for the the 1st of May and didn't realize that I'd be completely off grid with no signal to promote it. Yet it felt like perfect medicine through like Beltane ceremony, being in the portal with the bros, and it's going to do what it needs to do. My intention is to share it with other organizations that I mentioned in it and far and beyond, because when someone says, oh, what's men's work? How does the connection of brotherhood feel? Like this is it. So yeah, so that isn't out now. It was actually synced on one of the after movies for one of the Sacred Sons pieces for the stripped back version for the last island piece. And then there's like I'd say for me it's like almost like a cinematic soundscape for My Brother's Keeper. And yeah, that's currently out now on all streaming services, alongside Shinobi, which is on the other end of the spectrum, spoken word to like a Bristol like drum and bass. So yeah,
bass vibes. Yeah, I love that. I love that, man. And what a beautiful way to close the circle on this episode as well, because you know that that track literally embodies the combination of creativity and well-being so beautifully. And honestly, the way that the sorts of ideas and feelings that you're articulating in that track, I'm like, this is the next stage of evolution for, you know, hip hop and like beats and rhymes based genre in this country, you know, and I'm seeing a lot of MCs coming up, you know, shout out Names Bliss, amongst others, who are coming through with this next level of kind of conscious lyricism where it's like, it's real, it's vulnerable, it is touching on things that perhaps these genres of music have not touched on before, and bringing forward some of that kind of understanding of self, introspection, and accountability, or you know, authenticity, integrity, all of these sorts of ideas through into that space. And where these were very traditionally macho, egotistic kind of spaces, actually bringing through that kind of vulnerability and that other aspect of healthy masculinity. I think that's, you know, more power to that, man. We need more of that in the space, you know. So big up to you for being a pioneer for that, brother. And I have to say once more, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute honor, absolute pleasure having you on. So grateful for your wisdom and these conversations, and, you know, look forward to sharing a container in person with you again very soon, you know.
Most def. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your kind words, your support, and for this platform, bro. And continuing to shower prayers, blessings, and abundance in creativity, financial, and all upon you on this journey. And yeah, keep doing the good work, my bro. So much love.
Thank you, brother. So last piece, if people want to get in contact with you, or, you know, where's the best place for people to follow you or find out more about what you do?
So on pretty much everything apart from X, which I don't really use that much, it's at iAM13E. That's at iAM13E, which is said IMB, and that's the same iAM13E on .com, on Spotify. And if you want to email me, it's hello@iam13e.com for creativity, commissions, coaching, and just cool shit. Let's do some amazing.
Wordsmith and Well-Being, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Love it. Thank you, bro. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on personal development and creative empowerment. Until next time, stay lucid.